So, now what?
Welcome to Under the Finfluence.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Jules. Welcome to our pilot podcast recording of Under the Finfluence. Woo! Really excited to finally get this together.
Yay, Christine, we did it. Under the Finfluence is a fin-friendly podcast. Welcome to marine scientists, marine enthusiasts, conservationists, students, and everyone in between.
Yeah, I'm super excited to chat with you and, bring in people from our network and hopefully beyond and interview them and ask them about their lives, how they ended up in probably some of the strangest places literally on the planet, learn more about being a scientist, a researcher, and all of the other jobs that help support science and conservation, and hopefully making some policy change as well. And I hope we have a lot of laughs along the way. Also, I think we should say ground rules right now. This is a shark and fish podcast. We don't discuss.
We are fin-friendly.
Well, except for one. Except for dolphins. Let's be honest. Let's be real here for a second. All right, welcome to the first pilot recording of Under the Finfluence.
This is raw, uncut, wild. Just kidding.
I hope it's cut. We say some pretty ridiculous things.
Yeah, we wouldn't be good live.
Anyway, I am Jules, super excited to reach out to people in our network, chat with them, and ask them about their life story, what brought them to studying the ocean, and hopefully we can talk a lot about sharks along the way.
Yeah, that's great. Christine, that's why we're here. We really want to talk to people and get to know who they are behind those credentials, behind that personality on social media, for example, and really connect. And so I think what we want to create here with Under the Finfluence is this platform to not only strictly interview and grill people with questions, but we really want to get to know them and how they got to be in the position that they're in today, whether they have advice for anyone else who's changing career paths, developing their own way, and then throw in some wild story at the end that really gives us a good time here at the show.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. Between you and me, we've already got quite a few weird and wacky experiences in our lives, but there's so many other people that are doing such great work, and you have such different perspectives than you or I, who are more on the actual hardcore science and research side of things. So I'm excited to be able to give some of those people more of a voice and a platform to talk about what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, Jules, I'm super excited to interview lots of people and asking them about their lives and what their work is about. But we should probably tell people why you and I are the ones hosting this podcast and kind of what our backgrounds are and how we started becoming people that love finned animals. So when you want to start, tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah, I'm a PhD student today, but I never thought that this was going to be my path. I didn't really grow up as a shark enthusiast, perchance. I definitely always interacted with animals and enjoyed those connections kind of in nature and outside. But I actually grew up inland in California, so not really on the coast at all and not really regularly visiting the beach, but maybe like lakes in the summertime or near reservoirs and things. And then it wasn't till probably high school that I was introduced really to camping at the beach and just spending the whole day there or a couple days in a row. And so I think that steered my path to Hawaii through those formative years. And then as an undergraduate at Hawaii Pacific University, I started working outside of school to, just keep up some income. And that really led my path as a diver. And then I just progressed for about a decade between scuba dive master, dive instructor, whale watching, lifeguarding into more of a sailboat setting, shark diving, all the way through to, hey, here's my gap. Here's my, as an undergrad, if I'm going to do science, I need some kind of follow through with graduate education. North Shore Oahu Shark Eco Tours, it's so accessible, is what I felt after being kind of a dive guide for 3 years or so. And just the science is right on the outskirts and the conservation is being sold. But how do we connect these things and how do we really deliver the follow through to all the customers that are coming and interacting with me? And I say, hey, I'm on my path to grad school. I really needed to follow through on that personally. And here I am 6 years in as a PhD candidate, watching my light at the end of the tunnel on my way back out. But were you always a dolphin lover, Christine? Did you know that from a young girl that you were going to be studying cetaceans and everything about dolphins?
Yeah, you know what I love about you, Jules, is that you just really know how to trigger me. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, I didn't because I am not a fan of dolphins, to be honest. I don't know how I was able to convince you that I love dolphins in the last few months that we've known each other, but it was all a lie. Shark person, actually. I think it's
No.
time to cancel the podcast.
So, Christine, tell me, when did you start pursuing sharks as like a study focus or just, your path to getting to where you are today?
Well, first, I think it's really interesting that you are somebody that didn't necessarily grow up near the ocean, because I find that a lot of people that go into marine research are like from the Midwest. I know you're from California, but there are a lot of people that didn't grow up around the ocean that then later in life, high school, college, or after, really found a passion for the ocean. And I've always wondered if there's like an actual like correlation here, because I feel like everyone's from Ohio.
Yes.
My
Yeah,
path's a
but
little
we're not
different.
all here from originally. We're all here scattered about from like probably Europe for the most part, or like anywhere else in the world, unless you're indigenous.
Well, I mean, I think it just shows like no matter where you're from or what your background is, people are just drawn to the ocean and want to learn more about it. So whether or not you were one of those babies that's like thrown into the deep end of the pool, you still are made of water, and I feel like people just have this draw and curiosity around it. I grew up spending my summers on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, which when I say that, everyone's going to say, oh, white sharks, you know. But growing up, we didn't really have that many sharks because we didn't really have that many seals. And so I was lucky enough to spend a considerate amount of time every year seeing how proper conservation was able to bring back a lot of our health of the ecosystem. So because of the Marine Mammal Protection Act in the 1970s, we had a lot more seals as I went from elementary, middle school, high school, college, which because of that, that's really when the white sharks started returning to Cape Cod.
Yeah, that's such a cool story. I love this part of your path here.
And I mean, it wasn't even like just the megafauna, so not just the seals and the sharks, but there was far less seagrass. There was far less grass in our bays because our bays were more polluted. Because of that as well, we didn't have as many bay scallops. Today, I can go like snorkel and see scallops on the seafloor in super shallow water right in front of my house. But that's actually not how I got into sharks. As a kid, I thought I was going to be a microbiologist because my first animal was a planaria or planarian, if you're familiar with those. Those like
Maybe
tiny
they've got like this shape.
little flatworms. Because I went to like those like summer science camps, and my mom was like, "You can't get a dog, blah blah blah. You know, you're not ready." I was like,
Little Christine's got like a planarian in a little pocket jar. You guys want to see my planarian?
this is like third grade, and I did like a summer science camp, CCMNH, Cape Cod Museum of Natural History. And during that 1 week, we like had the planarians, and they're the kind of things where if you like cut them in half or whatever, they regenerate. So you started with one, and now you have two. And then I asked if I could bring some home.
The head scientist era is clearly in her foreground.
So I thought I was going to be a microbiologist because of that. But then I went to University of Miami and for undergrad, and I majored in biology because my parents said, you clearly love science, but we want you to make money. So you're going to go into medicine. And I tried. And then my sophomore year, without telling them, I added a marine science minor because that's really where my passion is. And plus, I was in Miami. And then the second semester of my sophomore year, I added an art minor because I really love photography and underwater photography. And I told them both, didn't add any money for them, just more work for me. So I told them my junior year, and I had two minors I didn't know about. But when I was there, I met Dr. Neil Hammerschlag, and he ran what was at the time called the RJ Dunlop Shark Lab. So it's now today SRC, Shark Research and Conservation Group. I just actually started out as a media intern. So I was studying spiders in my biology degree that I'd collected actually in the Solomon Islands. And then on the weekends, I was going shark tagging and got to film every single time we went out. So my whole job was to film the day, take photos, and then I was the only person at that time who was allowed to get in the water with the sharks too. So that's how I really started getting my obsession with seeing sharks really eye to eye and seeing them in their own environment, seeing them for what I think they actually are, just beautiful. And that's
that's such a powerful experience that not all scientists have, not all fishers have. definitely media often does, if they're underwater at least. I think we connect very closely on that fact that just being in the water and the presence is really holding and almost like arresting. But then it's so fascinating, and you can learn more about it and not necessarily know what a shark is going to do next, but definitely predict their behaviors.
You
like
learn.
how, with other animals, like if you have a room full of golden retrievers and you're just like, oh my gosh, they're all golden retrievers, but then the more time you spend with them, you might be able to recognize, oh, that one plays tennis ball and chase and whatever, and this one, like, we both have dogs too, so I definitely think sharks connect as like a sea dog of sorts. I've talked to other people that think they're more cat-like, and I can see flares maybe with different species, but I think their capacity to follow their nose and just kind of like dominate the environment and sometimes be more pack-like and then other times be more solitary, they're all very shark-like qualities that I connect from my background and experience with like dog behaviors. And I just find that all very fascinating, and like that's what I would prefer to spend all my time doing if that was a paid job.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny because, like, I mean, I have a large, quote unquote, scary dog. I have a large pit bull type dog, and I've always said the same thing. Like, when my dog looks scary, but like when he gets nervous or he doesn't like know something, he doesn't have hands like we do to manipulate it. So the first thing he does is he sniffs it, and so people are like, "Why is your dog getting closer to me?" Just like a shark. And just like sharks, most of their sensory organs are on the pointy end, the scary end of the animal, right? So my dog has his nose, and the sharks have the ampullae of Lorenzini, so they're able to sense electricity, electrical currents there, and they also have actually feeling in their teeth.
So I wanted to riff off your dog thing and be like,
yes. Yeah,
when a dog sticks its nose and it explores and it's investigating and it sticks its nose, a dog is closer on the evolutionary scale to humans than fish or sharks. And so they have paws, they have appendages and other ways besides their face only, whereas a shark can't even swim backward. And they do have all those sensory intakes, focused on the face. They have abilities to feel with their body as well, like the sensitivities of the water movement and pressures and temperatures, but it's also risky for them. And so I think because we're both very comfortable with sharks, the idea of sharks, what they are, what they represent, and we're communicating this like to the public and with our guests, and I hope that comes across in our podcast, this like not a level of complacency, but a level of comfort that we have, and that's therefore driving kind of our passions and our focus direction on sharks. And I think we'll have some strong themes of not only biology, but some ecology and evolutionary, like just connections and things along the way as well, because we're aware that it's all connected, and we're in the day and age where we're communicating as scientists, as human beings, as just kids sometimes in a way, but to all people and in all ways that we can, and studying that animal or that question also in all angles and across perspectives and backgrounds. And so we're cool. Listen to us. Press the click button.
Follow.
We're natural as fuck. What happened in undergrad? Tell me more about your undergrad experiences.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm really lucky that at that time, University of Miami was putting more emphasis on science communication and taking, art students and film students and design students and STEM students and putting them into the same classes. And that's how I actually got started and joined the Shark Lab, through one of those classes. So I was really privileged and lucky to be there at that time. Did you have any classes like that really inspired you in undergrad to want to do sharks or do what you're doing today?
Yeah, I got into scuba diving and as an undergraduate, just to earn some money at the same time. And then I think marine vertebrate zoology, for sure. Dr. Keith Korsmeyer, I mean, that was the first, I think, class that was very formative for me to be learning about something that felt like I really connected with, and I really was seeing it in the water as a diver, working, and then learning about it in a book. And so I think became really fishy and ocean going and just absorbing everything I could, both inside the classroom with the textbooks and with the delivery of, the professor and the repetition and studying, but also in the field. Because another formative class, I went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks in the summer. That was 2011. So I think that was after my junior year. And it was through my ecology professor. She had a sustainability type of course where we stayed at an eco lodge. We got to experience both the mountains and the cloud forests, but also coastal. We did some sea turtle involvement where, the sea turtles are coming out, and we do walks at night and counts at night, learning about all of their trials and tribulations, just that from the temperature that they're born, which we're now seeing a decline in the number of male sea turtles.
Yeah.
Which is like a decade-old problem, because then it's like, okay, well, if you don't have males now that are this year's old. But I wanted to connect back to what you were saying about being privileged and grateful for having, for example, conservation classes, let alone your very unique connection of science and arts and all of these different disciplines. Because these, from my perspective, which I don't know really, from those who were here before me, but I don't think that there were as many options available to people. And even just the fact that I was studying in Hawaii and you were studying in Florida, and the ability for us to kind of travel around and to get to these places, and then to study at these places, and then to, be taking in all of these newer, like cutting edge. That's a great thing about universities, right? Is we're exploring all of these different things from different angles. It's up to you to make those connections sometimes, whether you have that class and ability that connects you to those different routes and perspectives, but it's also like what your personal journey is and how you can connect these things or find what fascinating. Because I think that's what we really want to evoke with this podcast is you can be involved in the ocean, the marine environment, the freshwater system, estuaries in so many different ways. And you can be in it diving headfirst and plunging yourself physically into the environment, or you can be with our technology and kind of ability, you can be somewhere completely different. You can be watching a live cam of the deep sea or Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's the end.
Well, I'll just say, I think one thing that is really important, I know, for both of us to get across in life, and especially through this podcast, is that no matter what your background is or what your skill set is, you can be an asset to conservation and marine work. You can be somebody that works on budgets to help get a field research team out actually doing their work, or you can be the artist who comes along and documents their work, or you can be the policymaker, or you can be the person that's planning the expedition, or the person that loves to study deep sea corals. So I really want to get across that it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, what you want to do. You can still find a paying job doing this, or you can be, a volunteer and do, citizen science work. There's always a way to get involved.
There's always a way, and it's being creative and using whether you're drawing from your skill set or you're drawing from your experience, you're drawing from your unique background. There is always a way. And so I didn't know that I wanted to do sharks from when I was born. I feel like there's so many people that tell me that story. They're like, I've been diving since I was 3 and my parents loved the ocean and I loved sharks. And I'm like, that is not the route that got me here. So I like to say that sharks chose me, which feels really little, but that feels cool that there's like whatever has drawn me specifically down this lane. And I'm more of a coastal and pelagics, and you're more of a deep sea, but I think we complement real nicely.
Yes.
Christina, when I was an undergrad, I saw that I needed to return to science in some level for a graduate degree if that was going to be my future. But did you always know that you were on the path to grad school? Did you go straight to grad school after your undergraduate? No.
Hell no. No, I think I've definitely taken a pretty non-traditional path to being in grad school today. So I graduated University of Miami with a major in biology and minors in marine science and art in 2015. And at that point, I'd always said I wanted to move to Australia. Like, that's what I knew I wanted to do since I was very little, because
That's
thanks
right.
to
The land of Oz.
I didn't know I was going to be into sharks, but I knew I was into Australia. So I actually moved to Australia just to travel for a year and a half. But while I was there, we got really lucky and we walked into an aquarium in Shark Bay. So like middle of nowhere, Western Australia, and asked if they were hiring. And they're like, we actually are. We're looking for 2 marine scientists to talk to people about sharks and, the snakes and stuff that live here. And we're like, sick, hire us. So that was my first taste of doing more education and public speaking when it came to talking about sharks and having to like craft a story around the animal and why they're important and why you should be listening to me instead of bothering your brother in the audience next to you. And so that was a really formative time for me. And then while I was there, I was talking to a friend of mine, Austin Gallagher, who had started an NGO called Beneath the Waves. And I had pitched to him before I left, I'm from Cape Cod. There's now a lot of interest in sharks, specifically white sharks on Cape, but we should be taking kind of that interest and that groundswell and that funding and putting it to studying other sharks there as well. So while I was gone, he was like, hey, I actually got the funding for you to start this, take this project on. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went back for a couple of months that summer in 2017 and started a summer tagging program. And that was, and still is around for like 6 or 7 years now, which is pretty great. So we focused on porbeagles, threshers, makos, and blues mostly. And that was really big for me because it was also the first time that I really got to have like an entrepreneurial moment, because he said, here's, $5,000 for the next few months. That's not going to get you very far. You need to go out and make, relationships with the fishermen who can get me out in the water to tag the sharks and get the samples and, start bringing in students and all that. So it really became like this little ecosystem, like microcosm for me of my first little quote unquote business and like working on a budget and keeping it below that. And that's something I'm really proud of. But over time and doing a lot more work with Beneath the Waves, we started getting into more technology and being on the cutting edge of using what's coming out so that we could study different environments. And the deep sea is, of course, a poorly studied, really, really understudied part of our ocean, which is actually the majority of our ocean.
Right. There's there's
percent, I think.
But how much have we even looked at or investigated is like sad. You said
0.0001% of the ocean the seafloor has ever been seen by human eyes, right? Like wild. So we really don't know anything about even the areas where a lot of like trade and commerce is happening. So through that, I got, more interested in the deep sea, and therefore these really weird like deep sea sharks and things with like glowing bodies and big eyes, and focusing on filming them. And then we can talk about this another time. It'll take me forever, but starting a company around that technology, right? And
is that all part of your master's? Is that where your master's folded in then? Or are you now at this past your master's? This is in the thick of it.
I'm like super smart and like love myself, so I never push myself too hard. That's a joke.
I've seen your calendar. I've seen your Google calendar.
Terrifying. So I in 2021, I think, I started the Blue MBA at URI. Of course, it was COVID, so it was at first not in person. So that actually gave me a dual master's. So a master's in oceanography and an MBA at the same time. And so while doing school, I was also starting up a startup called Juice Robotics, to, really build and field a lot of these more affordable, these accessible marine, especially deep ocean technologies. And after I finished my master's in 2023, I was approached by a group that
got picked up with free money.
I still gotta work, man. And
no,
they're like,
I know.
Do a PhD, and I was like, hell no. I didn't even I'm not a traditional academic. I never really thought I would go back to school. I always knew that I was such a field person, and I love research, and I love the pure science, and I love asking questions and answering them. But I have ADHD. Like, I need to be moving. And I love designing a study to answer a question that I'm really interested in. And I love working with engineers to, solve a problem that a lot of people have. And building something that's going to be sustainable, economically sustainable, and environmentally sustainable. But my point, I guess, getting back to all this, is I never really thought I would end up back in school and getting so many degrees. But today I'm still at school. I'm a PhD student at University of Rhode Island still, and I'm into my second year as a PhD student, and I'm really focusing on the need and the market for what we're coining accessible ocean solutions, and then actually using these technologies that we're developing, and specifically for my thesis, these deep sea cameras, which we're calling BRUVs, Beta Remote Underwater Video Systems, to then study deep sea sharks in their environments. So yeah.
BRUVs are cool because you're using them to get to deep sea environments that humans are incapable of, but also they're a tool in this day and age. We're getting less and less invasive in the work that we're doing. And Bruvs is one of the ways where, we're not fishing a shark, for example.
Right.
And you can still have a really data rich export from that.
And see them like behaving in their actual environment. I mean, as much as I love handling sharks and being around them, especially for those that you're bringing from so deep up to the surface, I mean, they're not going to be very healthy after going through a trip like that. So the more we can do to be less invasive when we're studying animals in general, especially those coming from the deep, always the better.
Hey, bruv. I start work as a TA at the university in January in a ecology and evolutionary biology lab. And I've been a research assistant for the last 3 years. Worked in the marine safety office. I TA'd originally, but now I'm kind of on my downhill, hopefully wrapping up my PhD. And this podcast, this spinoff from Wild and Unprotected, has been, I think we connect well. It's real fun. It's definitely a creative outlet. It's a way to connect with other people from different backgrounds. It's a little bit of networking, I suppose, but also kind of pulling in our assets and resources and connections to people. But we're also looking for new connections, so feel free to drop us a link or a recommendation. If you want to be interviewed, let us know. The highlight. That's the highlight of each episode, is we want everyone to learn something. We're both learning something along the way. We're a platform for our interviewees to share what they want to share with the world, what they want to talk story with us about. And then we want to wrap up each one with a little, just kind of a story of choice, choose your weapon, chum diary, shenanigan, wild and out, crazy. Like, what happened? They did.
Yeah. I'm excited. I mean, we'll get to learn about people and their jobs and their professions, and then end on a kind of crazy, wild note and learn more about them, probably. Learn more about their study.
We're here for a good time.
Yes, definitely. You and I. Can we also talk about for a hot second how we've never actually met in person?
No, not yet. We work hard. We work digitally on the weekly now.
Yeah. It's crazy though how everything can be done over Zoom or Riverside, which we're using right now today. But yeah, thanks to Wild.
And then I think we're going to start after this pilot, if you guys stay tuned, for Holly Shields. She's an amazing cardiologist and Greenland shark focused expert. She won't be featured on every episode, so every episode, twice a month, we'll have a new co-star out here sharing their story, sharing their chum diary, sharing how they got to where they are, what they'd recommend or might have done differently. And hopefully someone somewhere can make a connection, can follow a link, kind of connect to stories, people.
Yeah. I'm really excited for people to hear Holly's story, because she's such a cool, strong woman, but also just there aren't that many people that are studying animals that live, 300-400 years old and get to actually study their hearts. And so some of the stuff that she's going to tell us about I'm really excited to learn more about for myself, my own interests.
To learn how a heart pumps for 300 years for a Greenland sharks, or that's another point too, Christine. So for each guest, when they come on board and share with us their story, we're going to have some kind of a connection to either papers that we really connect with, some kind of a resource material for the listeners. Maybe it's their website, their contact. Our contacts are always available. But it might be for one of our, for one of our feature episodes that's a highlight species or a highlight kind of realm of science.
Yeah, I mean, I really want people to leave each episode with more questions, really, than answers, because that's the whole idea. That's all science is. It's asking a question and answering it to your best of your ability. So I think, to help people with that, we're going to, like you said, put links to the people that we've interviewed, papers, their work or whatever, so that you, after the podcast, can go and do a little bit more research and find more about what they've been doing, and hopefully lead you to, some more answers and far more questions than you ever thought you were going to ask.
Some critical thinking.
Lacking
in the world today.
More 2024.
Some applied knowledge. Some, hey, what does this methodology mean? How can I learn more? Some, what is this type of shark? Where is it found in the world? How much do we know about it? And even before, right? Human knowledge was way before Western science, but any realm that you connect with, we just want people to learn more and know more and be curious, be hungry, keep asking those questions.
100%.
And have a good time. You get one life.
We ever had a bad time?
Wir wollen
Together.
gut.
And finger guns out.
Oh.